Take me through the process of when the transfer portal opens. That's got to be the craziest time for you and Coach Lee and your staff, because portal opens, you got to move fast as hell on guys, because you don't know. They could in one day decide where they're going. So if you like someone, you got to evaluate them.
Yeah.
You got to do your research before you officially sign them, or else you may miss on something. What's that process like when the portal opens and you got to decide in 4 hours if you actually want to offer a guy or not?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's interesting because I think every program now is built to do a lot of advanced work. We're no different than anyone else in that. I mean, we work really hard in the fall to build a board and understand what's out there and have some real awareness to what's going to come available. But you can do as much advanced work as you want. You can log all kinds of man hours on that. When that portal opens, there's going to be names that pop up that maybe you weren't prepared for. There's going to be opportunities at guys, maybe relationships in place from a staff member or someone connected to a player that may allow or facilitate something. And so you're right. No matter how much due diligence you do, there's still going to be those moments where you really do have to quickly make a decision, to quickly assess a staff consensus, and then run with it. And so it's frenetic. We got guys coming in sort of on the, they go in the portal, they may be visiting 2 days later, and we got to be ready for that. And so it keeps everybody on their toes. It's certainly a fast-paced sort of time of the year. It's anxiety-inducing for sure. I think both because of just the quick pace and the movement around the transfer stuff, but also everything has ripple, and so you're always worried about what's the ripple of this, what's the ripple of a player that we may have that goes in the portal, what's the ripple of a player that we're bringing in, and so ultimately I think we've gotten to a point in our program that. Which is an exciting sort of evolution, but these guys actually really embrace competition and they want to be really good. They want us to bring in players that help this team be really good. And so, those things end up sort of ultimately taking care of themselves. But it is fast and furious. Yeah, for sure.
It's crazy. It must be crazy.
Yeah.
And you can't miss, as you said. You can't miss. As the GM at Vanderbilt, how have you incorporated data analytics into your approach to roster construction, to maybe self-scouting your own roster? How have you used data to make decisions?
Yeah, one of the things that I did, the first thing we did when we got here was I took a lot of time and we have some smart people on this campus, and I tried to leverage that, and we did some work on just really studying what's been successful here at Vanderbilt in terms what's the profile by position, what's the profile both in terms of their athletic profile, but also their recruiting profile, their academic profile, what is actually the sweet spot. And that was informative, instructive. It helped guide us early in some things, and I think as we've gone, we've tried to be super aware of bringing in as much context as we can to our decisions. And yet at the same time, I think one of the ways that I've evolved a little bit is to not actually to not let the analytics and the data get in the way of making a good football decision. I think there's a balance there. And I think it's important to know what that balance is. And especially kind of like I mentioned earlier too, especially when you're building teams way more year to year than sort of, 4 years down the road, I think it's important to make sure that you're bringing in guys that are fits right now for what you're doing, And so I think we found a balance in that. I think this is one of the difficult things about this role right now in the climate we're in is it's not like the NFL fully, because you don't know exactly what the free agent market's going to look like. You can't lock guys in for long-term contracts.
You don't know what the contracts are.
The contracts, the market is so dynamic. There's, hopefully we're going to have a cap, which starts to maybe create a little bit more market stability. But prior to that, there really isn't a cap, and there really is no, there's no limit to what the market is. And so that creates this like this world where, it's almost a mistake to try to stay really hard line around these like really data-driven decisions. I have a strong appreciation for analytics and data, and I've done a lot of things to incorporate that into our processes. And yet, like one of the real realities that I've had to come to grips with is this sort of like idea that you can't be hard line in this world. You've got to really have an ability to sort of adapt to each situation independently of itself. And so I'm fascinated on where this is all going to go, on the evolution of it all, because what I'd like to do is get to a place where, hey, this is we are, everything is by the book, and everything is data driven, and but until we have structure in place that creates the guardrails, that what the rules are that you're playing within, it's kind of hard to operate that way.
Is there any data analytics numbers that you always want to see when it comes to certain players or when you're evaluating talent? And then I'd have to assume that there has to be some kind of, you mentioned the cap, there has to be some system or algorithm that you're using to figure out how much a player at X position is actually worth, and is it worth paying that amount of money? Or are you saying that a lot of it, because there's no cap, it comes down to feel?
Yeah, that's
a lot of nuance here.
That's the nuance that I kind of reference. I think the second in this world to this point, because listen, I think there's some rule evolution right now that's allowing us to hopefully to find a little bit more structure. To this point, it's been, I've not prescribed to the idea of here's the window, and we're not gonna stray outside this window. Now, obviously, there's a lot of factors that are in play there. How deep is your board, and what's the depth of the position nationally, and what's your room look like? What's the high school crop look like? I mean, all these things are sort of inputs that you have to evaluate. And then I think at the end of the day, like it's I think it's important to acknowledge, like, at least in our operation, I'm not working on an island, and our coaching staff is involved in who they're coaching, and so there needs to be a level of buy-in from them, and sort of coordination and collaboration on how we're going to build the roster we want. And so all of that, I think, creates, to this point, again, through the first couple of iterations of this, a world where I actually think it's a mistake to create too many hard lines. And I think to this point, actually, when you look at kind of what we've done, what I think 2 years into like really attacking transfers is we've got a pretty high hit rate, and hopefully we're going to be able to continue that. But it's a process, I think, that's way more art than science.
Yeah. Is there a common trait that you have found during your time doing tons of evaluations that you feel like is the most common denominator among the best players? Maybe tangible or intangible.
I think one of the things that I've always, even back to my my media days, and I think continues to translate is just the multi-sport athletes. Mm-hmm. I think because ultimately one of the things that you're trying to suss out when you're going through this process, and the thing I think, and this isn't revolutionary to say this because I think a lot of people obviously acknowledge this, but I mean, you got to find guys that love football. You got to find guys that love to compete. And one of the best ways to identify someone that loves to compete is just who are the guys that are just always doing something. Like there's always playing something,
Yeah.
there, and like who's the guy, and there's actually some ways through our recruiting process that we'll insert some things that allow us to just get a little bit of a glimpse of what is their competitive temperament, like what is their level of like how easy are they to entice into a game of something, because it's just those little clues, and I think when you're looking at a guy who's got a resume of 4-sport athlete, or as every ball he touches seems to be, he's making some really impressive plays, and I think those things seem to translate across all positions, that's sort of the broad kind of characteristic. Like if I'm just creating a player, man, like it's a guy that just loves to be out there playing sports, and he's really good at it. And I think that, like, for me, it's always been something where, like, I think so many, like if I'm watching a football player and I find out he's got basketball tape, I'm immediately going to say, well, I'd rather watch the basketball tape right now. Like, show me the basketball tape. Like, you can see, like, body control, burst, movement, quick jump ability, like twitch, like those things show up on a basketball. And I think there's there's wide receivers that play center field. They can track the ball really well. Like they typically have really good ball skills. Like those sort of like little like lines that you can connect to different sports and different positions, I think are really interesting. And I'm always on the hunt for trying to figure out like what are the tells, because we only have so much information. So how do you just, what's the tell that gives us that much more information? But on top of all that, though, I've really continued to kind of come back to production. Yeah. Like at the end of the day, if like you better be productive. If you're going to be productive in college, you better have been productive in high school. I don't care where you played. If you're going to be productive at the Power 4 level and you're a transfer coming in from FCS or something, you better have been productive, And so that is ultimately, like, I think that sort of grounding, characteristic you have to always be aware of. To get too seduced by all the other stuff and forget about the reduction is going to get you in trouble.
Yeah, a big group of people that watch this show or listen are kids that want to play college football. And one of the most common questions I get asked in my DMs, out in public, wherever, are questions about highlight tapes. Hey, what do I put on my highlight video? How do I get noticed by coaches? You probably spend a lot of time in your staff watching highlight videos. Yeah. So when you turn on someone's highlight tape, what's the actual process? What are you actually looking for? Are you watching 20 seconds of it? Are you watching 3 minutes? Are you going a minute and then I'm watching game film and then I'm going to see, like, what's it? Give our viewers a little insight of what you're actually looking at.
Yeah, I think the highlight tape is sort of the starting point, and you better have really good highlight tape. Yeah. I mean, you can't. Plays. Yeah, you can't. Like if you don't have, at our level, if your highlight tape isn't doesn't pop, like there's no way to manipulate that. It's either going to pop or it's not. And so I think that's always the starting point. Typically, when we're getting together as staff, that's highlight tapes what we're watching. Now, I will say, like, that again, that is the starting point. And so then from there, what we always try to check off our list is we want to make sure we get ideally an in-person eval, just to see the way they move, see the way that they just again, how big they are, you know, what's their just kind of the movement skills you can't see on the tape. You know, we take a workout tape as well. Like right now, we're able, like I think when guys go to camps and they get film working out, like low angle stuff where you can see these guys compete, and that's really helpful. But then we're going to monitor we're going to cross check highlight tape with game tape as well. So like we're going to have POAs, point of attack tape on every player we end up taking, and we're going to try to make sure that matches up. Like, and listen, most high school kids, their point of attack tape is where it's basically the good, bad, and the ugly. It's everything that's relevant, basically. And most high school kids, you're going to see some real warts in that, you know?
Some ugly.
There's some ugly in there. And so we've got to then be able to just assess, hey, like this is in his DNA. We can't fix this. Like that's or it's like, hey, well, we can deal with that. And I think in most cases for high school kids, it's just about like, I mean, most guys don't know how to play hard. Ultimately, like every snap. And so when you get a guy where the point of attack tape looks like the highlight tape, you got a special player. And that's a way again to suss out like who are the guys that are competitors. You know, I talk about the multi-sport thing. The point of attack tape's a way to tell that too. I mean, it's on there, man. You find out pretty quick. But I think when you're doing it, but the highlight tape is just sort of, that's like the headline, you know, that's like your entry point into the player. And I think, again, you can't do all that other stuff for as many kids as you can watch a highlight tape for. So that you sort of refine and filter the group down, and the higher they get on the board and the more likely the heavier we're recruiting them, the more data, information, and sort of exposures we need of them. Because it's just like, again, going back to my old days when I was recruiting, or doing the media stuff, you're in that world, you're ranking, 5,000 kids a year. And so there's a little bit of, you have to do some projecting, and well, here we're going to take 25. You know, you got to take 25. And so you better make sure it's the right 25. And that's 25 is on the high end these days. So it's I think highlight tape's the starting point, and if you don't have a good highlight tape,
you're in trouble.
You know, it's not for the SEC.
It's funny you mentioned the good, bad, ugly. When I spent a couple years coaching at Arizona State, it was evaluating tight ends and offensive linemen, and we used to do literally and call it the good, bad, ugly tape on every prospect. And one of the exercises they did was when it came down to, we're throwing offers out, but when it comes down to if we're going to take a player or not, the position coach in front of all the other coaches had to watch the ugly tape and still say, I stand on the table for this kid. And it really tested your conviction of, like, after watching that everyone saw the bad plays, do I still believe in that player? Because you're right, a lot of times there's some ugly stuff on those high school tapes.
That's right. It's, we were all high schoolers once. Like,
my high school ugly tape would have been good.
That's right.
The highlight tape was good.
And so it's like, and I think it's interesting, like if you're looking at an ugly tape, I think some coaches, some coaches may not. That exercise would be interesting because, what is the ugly you can't afford to take? Is it this guy looks slow, or is it this guy has
taking plays off,
or he's not a competitor? Like, I think that's the where are you compromising? I think every program's gonna be a little different.
No, it's interesting how you get to the actual evaluation of who you're taking and who you're not.